Let's all come back tomorrow.
Tomorrow's Thursday. Look at Thursday.
It's a short drive. It's right around the corner for me.
How long is it?
All right.
Hour. So,
All right.
yeah.
So now we're going to talk about Rule 27. So ball
27?
lost or out of bounds or provisional ball. Can you guys still see the screen?
I can see it.
Yes, I see the screen.
Okay.
I'm not here.
All right. Just holler if it goes away for whatever reason. All right. So before we get started, we just need to go over the definition of the lost ball because that's pretty important when it comes to this rule. So there's 5 ways that a ball can become lost. Does anyone have an idea of what they are?
Mm-hmm.
Other than Gene?
We're glad you do, Gene.
Out of bounds.
All right, out of bounds. Yep. Well, no, but that's not one of these. So it's different. It's different.
It's not found.
It's lost.
What, it's not found?
It's not found when?
Within 5 minutes.
5 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay. That's
We
one.
made a stroke with the provisional ball in the
Okay.
place where the original ball is likely to be or 1 point near.
Or beyond that spot, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so if you make a stroke at a provisional ball from where the ball is likely to be or beyond that spot, that's 2. How about if we play stroke and distance?
Yep.
That's 3. The other ones are a little bit harder. So
The substitute ball.
play a stroke at a substituted ball, and then the other. Yep, go ahead.
So if another player plays your ball,
Which would be an outside agency.
It's part of it.
Right. Yeah. So that's part D here. So basically, that's going to come into play where you have known or virtual certainty that the ball, which is not the count, has been moved by an outside agency or played by another player in that case, or is in an obstruction, or in an abnormal ground condition, or in a water hazard. And then last one, like Craig said, players made a stroke at a substituted ball. So that's when the ball is lost. Now, question for you guys: can a player deem a ball lost?
No.
No. Right.
No.
A player can't say that ball is lost. He or she has to do one of these 5 things in order for the ball to be lost. Okay. And this last thing in the definition here: time spent in playing a wrong ball is not counting the 5 minutes. 5-minute period allowed for search.
Hey,
All right.
Kyle,
Yes.
is the screen? Are the slides supposed to be moving forward? We're still kind of on the title screen.
Okay. That's what I thought. All right. Hold on. Yeah. Can you see it now?
Yeah, just clicked over.
Okay. All right. So for those of you guys here, this is all listed in the definition section, but these are the 5 situations where the ball is going to be defined as lost, and those again are listed in the definition section there.
Okay.
All right. So first one we're going to go. So proceeding under stroke and distance, we talked about that. So that's pretty simple, right? Under 1 stroke penalty, we're going to go back to and play a ball as nearly as possible from where we last played. And so that's simple. Except as otherwise provided in the rules, if a player makes a stroke at a ball from the spot at which the original ball was last played, he is deemed to have proceeded under penalty of stroke and distance. So this is a general statement. We know that there's other situations like as it says, except as otherwise provided in the rules. So one example would be a provisional ball, right? We can hit another ball from the spot where we last played from, but it doesn't always necessarily become the ball in play. If we play 2 balls, that's also a situation where we're not necessarily always going under stroke and distance, but every other time we are going to be going under stroke and distance when we play from where we last were. All right, so out of bounds. So this is a little bit different than it being lost, but a ball that's out of bounds, you have to go back from where you last played from. Simple. We all know that one. Okay. And then this one here with ball not found within 5 minutes. So this is one that again we're all familiar with. Now in the decisions there's lots of definitions talking about when the timing starts and when it stops, right? In terms of where you're at, if you're searching for multiple balls, a provisional ball, there's lots of good decisions in there. But basically, that clock is going to start rolling once you or your side gets into the area where the ball is likely to be, right? So could be when we say side, we also mean caddy as well, or partner if you're playing foursomes or a 4-ball. So okay, so if the ball is lost as a result of not being found within 5 minutes, they're going to have to go back and play from where they last were under 1 stroke penalty, right? And the other important thing, this is the reason why we asked you guys to have stopwatches or keep track on your phone or something like that, because the 5 minutes does matter, and it's not a estimate. It's an exact. Just like on the starting tee at 5:01, that ball is lost. At five minutes, it's okay, but as soon as it gets after 5 minutes, it's lost. So
Kyle,
important to keep. Yeah,
in some of our tournaments, there's spectators out there.
sure.
Do we count the 5 minutes when the spectator starts looking, or when the player or his caddy start looking?
Yeah, when the player or the caddy or anyone else on the side. Yeah, that's a good question, and that's something that you can tell spectators to encourage them to get out in front and look for balls, because that's just added time that they really get to look for. It doesn't count against their 5 minutes.
Yeah, when you say that, but it's just his partner, right? So if it's his
Mother.
mother can go
Yeah.
look, but his golf coach, once they start looking,
Well, I guess it would. I don't have enough experience
I don't think so.
in determining. I mean, I think it would
Caddy or his partner.
be how they clarify the coach to be. But I would say that most team competitions probably don't. I mean, I don't have enough experience working in those where I would guess that the coach isn't clarified as part of the side, but it would just be how they define it. If they define the coach to be part of the side, then yes, that would be the case. But I don't think that would be the case. If it's anywhere, it'd be under like a local rule or even an 8 or something like that under advice, because that's where you typically see something like that. But
one last question under this, is this where Mark Wilson talked about when you have to drop your ball, you hit it out of bounds, you got to drop as close as possible. And now you drop and it goes into the divot hole. We're considering that closer to the hole.
exactly.
So you don't have to play out of your old divot hole.
Right.
Oh, well, that was going to be my question exactly. So it's not rubber the green if it drops into the divot hole. You do a second drop.
Right, because that divot is going to be closer to the hole. Because if you think about a player that takes a shot when they hit their divot, when they hit their ball, the divot is going to be in front of where the ball was.
I see.
99 times out of 100. I mean, if you get something that they hit a really, really fat shot, I mean, maybe, but chances are that they're never going to be able to drop in their own divot again, because it'll be closer to the hole.
From if you identify the divot, do you mark off one club or two clubs from that, or just is it a drop just as close as possible?
Yeah, as nearly as possible to where you last played from. So no reference to one club length or two club lengths, just as nearly as possible where you last played from.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
Part of that, I just wondered, the player is allowed to start to play where his ball landed, whatever the line he got at that point, he gets to play from. Now, if he's hit the ball and it has to play a stroke and just come back, you should still have the line that you had originally, which was not in the divot. Does that make sense?
Well,
You still should
no.
be entitled, because he's taking a penalty anyway, right? You should still have the line that he had when he first started.
Well, it just, I think it just depends. If there's a divot here, where his divot, and then there's one like a foot behind it, his ball bounces and it rolls back into that divot, not close to the hole, but it wasn't his divot, and he has to play it.
But his divot.
It wouldn't be his divot because his divot is closer to the hole, so he's not necessarily entitled to any. Yeah, so
I guess he starts a bit long before the ball.
right. Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
it's the back end of the divot, it wouldn't be closer to home.
I mean,
Okay.
possibly, but 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, if you take a divot, the entire divot's going to be in front of where the ball is.
But you're not entitled to the line you had when you first started.
Right, exactly. Yep. All right, so one exception to this is if it's known or virtually certain that the original ball has not been found, has been moved by an outside agency, is in an obstruction or an abnormal ground condition, or is in the water hazard, the player may proceed under the applicable rules. So again, if we have that virtual certainty that the ball is in that pond of casual water that we can't see the bottom of, they don't have to go back to where they last played from. They can take that known virtual certainty and take relief from the casual water in that case, from the point where they last crossed the outermost limits of the casual water. Just using that as an example. All right, so again, the penalty statement here, in match play, there'll be a loss of hole, stroke play, 2 strokes.
Kyle?
Yep.
Hi, it's Charlie Dupree. I have 2 questions.
Sure.
If player plays a provisional ball because he thinks his ball may be out of bounds, he plays a provisional ball and he announces it. He goes up and finds his ball is not out of bounds, but might be unplayable. Can he use his provisional ball for the potential out of bounds ball for that unplayable?
No, he can't, and we'll see in the rule here just shortly where it says that. But no, once the ball is found, he needs to proceed with that original ball, and that if he wants to take an unplayable, which would give him the option of going back where he last played from, he could. He could do that, but he would have to go back and re-hit. He couldn't use that provisional ball.
Okay, and if a player abandons, essentially is looking for a lost ball, in 4 minutes he tells his caddy to keep looking and he heads back, and the caddy finds it before 5 minutes, is that okay?
As long as he hasn't played, or if he hasn't dropped and put it into play under stroke and distance, that's fine. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right, so provisional ball, good segue into that. So as Charlie was mentioning, there is a procedure recommended to play a provisional ball. So you can play a provisional ball if you think your ball may be lost outside of the water hazard or may be out of bounds. Okay, so if you, as we talked about, I don't know if it was last week or a few weeks ago, if we know it's in a hazard or we know that the hazard's up in that general area, we can't play a provisional ball. It's only when it may be lost outside of a water hazard or the ball may be out of bounds. Okay, so you can do that. You can play a provisional. The procedure that you must follow, keyword must there, you need to announce to your opponent or your fellow competitor that you're playing a provisional ball. All right, so this decision here, 27-2A/1, talks about exactly the words that you need to use in order to proceed correctly. So we'll get to this in a little bit. All right. The other thing you need to do is you have to play the provisional ball before you go forward to search. And again, there's a great decision in there that talks 27-2A/1.5 that talks about what it means to go forward to search.
Yeah.
You have a notable hazard. It may be in play, but it's not visible. So off the tee, you can't see the hazard.
Right.
So since you don't know whether or not you're in the hazard, even though you know that the hazard exists in front of you, you play a provisional ball.
If you know it's there.
You know the hazard's there, but you don't know if you made the hazard.
I mean, it would. I guess it would depend if you think that your ball could be lost outside of the hazard. If there was out of bounds. Let's say that there's out of bounds and the hazard kind of connected.
So you hit it straight down the fairway, and
Sure.
you know that there's long grass short of the hazard. It's not 6 inches, but it might be 4 feet.
Right.
So you don't know whether or not you're in the marked hazard, but the hazard is not visible from the tee. You can play a ball, can't you? Yeah.
Play a visual.
Play a provisional ball.
But do you have to announce it all the time?
Absolutely.
Once again,
Yes, we'll go over that in a little bit. Exactly what what
you have to announce
do.
why you're playing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not
I play it
necessarily
because-
why. You just need to say that you're doing it. So let's just go ahead and jump ahead. We can go back. So this is the decision here. So basically, again, what it says is that you need to announce that you're playing the provisional ball. You need to use the words provisional ball, or you need to say that you're proceeding under Rule 27-2. And I've yet to hear anyone do that. Although when I go around and I do my high school rules clinics, I tell all these kids this, and I know one day, one of those kids is gonna say it just to prove me wrong.
Did I tell you my story about that?
No.
Because I've always used that line. I've never yet heard anybody say, I'm going to proceed under 27-2. I've been saying that for 30 years.
Right.
So now I'm sitting in the park. I'm
Hey, Kyle.
Hollow,
Hold on, Charlie.
at Plum Hollow, and a guy just rips his tee shot into the trees on the left. He sees me sitting there, and he turns around and he says, I'm going to proceed under 27-2. And I said, now I can't say that anymore.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
No, it's not Charlie, it's Richard.
Go ahead, Richard.
This, believe it or not, the Michigan State golf coach didn't know this rule, and I was refereeing a tournament last year, and the match swung on it because her opponent hit a second ball and didn't call it provisional.
Yeah, no, that's unfortunate to hear, but you got to learn them some way, and I guess that's the way that we all learn the rules a lot. So no, that's it's very important. And then the other thing too about this decision, or another way to get around this saying provisional ball or saying that I'm going to proceed under Rule 27-2 is, and this is something that I'll do because like you said, Richard, a lot of times players don't know that they have to say it. If you see it, if you're on a tee and you see a player getting ready to hit a second ball and they don't say provisional, you can tell them, are you hitting a provisional? And if they answer yes, that satisfies the condition that they played a provisional. So, you can always step in there and save the day, so to speak, in that case.
If you're not an official and your opponent or your fellow competitor is doing that, I do that a lot.
Yeah.
If they're going to go hit, and I'll say, what are you doing? Or are you playing a provisional ball? Yes, I'm playing a provisional ball.
Yeah, and that's great. Another good example of what we should be doing out there for sure. So
If you're in a tight match, is that appropriate?
depends on how many you're down.
Or if there's a press.
Right, exactly. Or how much is on the line, like Dan was saying. So
There's no betting in golf.
all right.
Kind of the back page of the 442 gives the things that people say, which I think is kind of important. That might be out, I'll reload.
Right.
That's not calling it a provisional ball and those types of things. Because I think my buddy got caught in the senior match play at our own club on number 8. He thought he hit it out of bounds. He says, I'll hit another one. That's gone. And they found it. He missed making the cut by one shot. And he had 2 shot memo.
Yeah, so as Dan referenced, these 4 little words here at the bottom, they're things that are commonly said on the tee, but they don't imply the player playing a provisional ball.
Well, they do imply it, but it
They do.
isn't stating it.
Right. They do imply it, but they're not allowed to play a provisional ball, or they're not playing a provisional ball
Unless it's properly disclosed.
exactly under the rules, right?
So, hey, Kyle, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So in that case, if somebody just says, I'm going to reload, that automatically becomes a stroke and distance issue there?
Exactly. Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Very good.
All right, so as we just discussed, if a player does not meet any of those requirements, they are going to be playing under stroke and distance there, and then the original ball is lost and out of play. There's one small note about the order of play for provisionals, as we talked about. When you're playing, the recommended way for stroke play is to hit the provisional ball after everyone has teed. It doesn't necessarily make a difference because there's no penalty in stroke play for playing out of order, but that's the recommended way. In match play, you would wait for the other person to hit and then hit your provisional.
Doesn't make any difference though if it's a second shot or a third shot. It just
Right.
okay.
And then the last one here, this last sentence here basically just says it's a long way of saying you can hit as many provisional balls as you want, and the same relationship to each provisional just goes for the ball preceding it. So if you hit your first one way left and then you hit a provisional and you hit it way right, you can hit another provisional and keep hitting provisionals until you have one in play. So hopefully we don't get in a lot of situations, but I know that I've been in situations at some courses where we're on the starting tee and the players hit 5 balls before they leave the tee, and you're just praying that they find one, the first one and not the fifth one, because it's going to be a bad start to the day.
But if you hit your provisional ball short, and let's say the ball that you hit might be lost, that's why you played a provisional, but it's 250 yards up, but your provisional ball only went 100, you can hit that provisional ball again until you get to that close to that area.
Exactly.
Or 3 times.
Right, exactly. However many times it takes to get there.
Right, okay.
And a lot of our players don't know that either.
Right.
You gotta make sure you tell them that.
Yeah, a lot of them will just assume they have to go forward to look for the ball, for their first one, but they can keep playing up to that point. Yep.
Don't be a high school player and not mark your balls.
That was a good question. I was just going to say, if he hit 5 of them, they were all marked the same before he.
Yeah.
Had a hit a whole sleeve in the same area.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on it, and he went up there and didn't identify. He didn't know which ball he actually found.
Then they're all on play.
They're all on play.
There's a decision in there, and they, you just, I don't recall if it's that you have to go back and tee again, or you just assume that the one is the third ball.
No, you go back and tee again. All the balls are out of play if you can't identify any of the balls as the original or the sequence of your provisional ball.
I thought it was just that you assumed that it was the last one.
But you can't tell which one's the last one.
Yeah, if you don't know which one's which. Let's look at that one up.
2710. That's A and B, not a provisional, but 2711.
Yeah, 2711 is the one you're looking.
Yeah.
435 stage.
All right, so it looks like solution 4 would be our answer to that. I would say, which would basically you would take the one, you would just choose one, and then you'd be hitting your whatever 6th shot from there if you hit 3 provisionals.
Yeah, so usually in 5 and hitting 6.
If you found one ball, you can't make a return. At least it's got to be the 5th ball. Maybe just flip a coin and say you're picking a number or something.
Yeah.
Don't give them 1 or 2. Maybe they get 3 or 6.
The coach gave him a sleeve of new balls, and it was the same ball in the sleeve, and he didn't mark them.
Poor kid's
And he
crying.
hit the whole damn sleeve.
Right.
in the same general area.
Yeah. Now, if in that situation we had 2 of those provisional balls were in play and 1 was out of bounds, in that case we would have to go back to the tee and hit 7 because we would have to assume the worst and then go back. All right. So this decision here, 27-2A/1.5, talks about what it means to go forward to search. So a player will be considered to have gone forward to search when he has proceeded more than a short distance towards the place where his original ball is likely to be. As the purpose of Rule 27-2A is to save time, the player is permitted to go forward a short distance before determining that it would save time to return promptly to play a provisional. As a guideline, the player should be considered to have proceeded more than a short distance and therefore to have gone forward to search if he has proceeded more than approximately 50 yards. So 50 yards is their thing. However, this guideline does not preclude a player from playing a provisional when he has proceeded more than a short distance for another reason, such as to retrieve a ball from his bag or to grab a different club where his bag may be 100 yards away, or to speak with the referee. So 50 yards is kind of their number, but there's a few situations where if the player went beyond 50 yards, it would be okay, but only to go get a ball, to go get another club, or to talk with the referee or rules official. All right, so when does the provisional ball become the ball in play? All right. So I'm going to try to draw it on the screen here. I think I can get this to work. So we've got our green here. Oops, that's supposed to be the flag.
So close to the edge.
Yeah, it's
That's a tough green screen.
It was a Ken Hartman hole location.
Hardest day of golf.
All right, so we got point A, point B. Oh man, it's painful. Point C.
They look good now.
All right. So point A is where we're starting, right? So player hits their first ball to point B, okay, and then they hit their second ball, which is a provisional ball, to point A. Okay, so as Craig was saying earlier here, you know, that player can play that provisional ball that's at point A. They can play it, so they can hit it to the green. And let's say that in our case, though, they hit it to point C. Okay, so it goes to point C. So the ball went past where the original ball is likely to be, right? That's okay. They just can't play a ball from that point where the original ball is likely to be, or from a spot closer to the hole. So even though the ball travels past point B, where the original ball is likely to be, that's okay. They just can't play a shot from point C or any other ball near point B or closer to the hole. Does that make sense? Okay. Should we save it? It's a pretty nice drawing. I'm scared to hit any button, it might mess something up. All right. Oh, it's still there. Okay, good. All right. So once they do that, now if they were to play a ball from point C in our situation, then their original ball would be lost. Okay, and then you're going to play the provisional ball. The original ball is lost outside of a water hazard or is out of bounds, the provisional ball becomes the ball in play. And again, so if we have determined that the ball is lost or is out of bounds, then that provisional ball becomes the ball in play under a penalty of stroke and distance. Right? Now the exception here is that if we have known or if it's known or virtually certain that the ball has been moved by an outside agency, is in an obstruction, or is in an abnormal ground condition, the player may proceed under that rule. So notice here this exception when we look back at our original exception under 27.2. Or sorry, 27.1, we see that that exception included a water hazard, but this one doesn't. So again, just to go over the point that we're not talking about a ball that's in a water hazard because we can't play a provisional ball if we have no virtual certainty that the ball is in a lateral water hazard, right? Okay. Oh, if you're still there. I just have to be there for the rest of the show. All right. All right. So when are we going to abandon our provisional ball? All right. So if the original ball is neither lost nor out of bounds, so if we find that original ball, the player is going to must abandon the provisional ball and continue playing with the original ball. And the other situation, if it's known or virtually certain that the original ball is in a water hazard, the player can proceed under Rule 26-1, and we're going to abandon the provisional ball. And so in Tom's situation that he talked about earlier, where the ball could be lost outside of the water hazard, if we went up there and we found the ball sitting in the water, the player wouldn't have to play. They would abandon their provisional and they would take relief under the water hazard.
Why are we using the word may instead of must?
Because the player could play. So if the ball was in a water hazard, they could play it out of the water hazard without any penalty.
I thought it was
Yeah.
fine. You could play a provision, but
Yeah. No.
okay.
Yeah. All right, and then the other thing that's important about this section of the rule here is that one thing we should always be looking at or considering when players are playing provisionals and when we want to start looking for balls is we need to make sure that the player wants us to search for the ball. So comparing where the original ball is and where the provisional ball is important. So just to give you an example, if we're on a par 3 and someone hits it 20 yards into some nasty woods, and then they play a provisional ball because their ball might be lost, and they hit it to 2 inches from the cup, is that player really going to want to go find that ball? Probably not, right? Because they're just going to tap in their bogey and get out of there. And so we don't want to go start looking for that ball until we ask the player, hey, do you want me to look for it?
Because if you find it, you got to play it.
Exactly. Because if we go into the woods and we find it, then they got to play it, and then they're gonna say, well, I want to take my provisional. You're gonna tell them, well, no, you can't, because once you find that original ball, if you want to take an unplayable, you have to go back and hit again, and hopefully they can replicate their shot, but chances are they won't be able to.
Hey, Kyle, is there a decision that says that you can tell the people not to look for your ball?
No, there's no decision that references that. I guess it's just more of a courtesy thing. Yeah. So Jeff. Yeah. So Jeff was bringing up a good example where I think it was at Pebble or it was at Torrey Pines.
Torrey.
Okay. So Mickelson just blew it way right or way left. I don't know. Left, and the ball was on a beach, and someone that was volunteering that day was really into what they were doing, and they went down and they found the ball on the beach. But Phil didn't want that to happen. Phil hit his provisional right on the middle of the fairway. He was good to go. But since that volunteer went down there and identified the ball, Phil has to go see if it's his. And so,
but kind of in the spirit of protecting the field. I mean, I'm not saying climb down on the beach or that, but.
Well, no. I mean, I don't think that. I think your best interest to protect the field. And this is just my opinion. I'll say, but your best interest is to ask the player, not to not to think that you're above what the player wants. If the player doesn't want you to look for it, you shouldn't look for it.
There is a decision, that if someone finds a ball in the area where the player's ball might be, the player cannot refuse to move it.
Exactly, yeah. So as Craig said, if someone does find a ball, that player has to identify it as his or not. Right, exactly.
Phil have been able to play that provisional before the guy found his ball.
Exactly. And so there's one decision in there.
There's 27-9, 27/9, which could have been Phil's deal. If you hit a ball, you think and it's in the woods, and then you play a second ball from the tee and don't call it a provisional, that ball becomes a ball in play, even if they find that ball.
Right, yeah. Ooh, there's one in here. There's one in here that I wrote down in 27-2B/1. I wrote down in my notes it's a race. But I think that what they do in this one is that, as Jeff was saying, if they can go and hit the provisional ball farther from where the original ball is, then they're okay. But the opponent or fellow competitor, if they want to go look for it to try to screw, well, I shouldn't say screw the player over, but to make that player play the ball, they can. It's just a race at that point. The who can do what first.
So Kyle, isn't this a really fine line between the player not wanting to look for his ball and deeming the ball out of bounds, deeming the ball lost?
Right. Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, the player can deem the ball lost, but then again, if you feel obligated to go search for it, I mean, I guess no one's going to stop you. But I kind of default to we're out there for the players, and we want to do. If a player tells me to not look for a ball, I'm not going to look for it.
I agree. I'm not going to go look for it.
Sure,
I'm
sure. Yeah, no, and I'm not saying you're not or anything like that. I'm just saying that's.
But his opponent may look for it.
Sure, exactly. If you're playing a match, I mean, if I'm playing a match against someone that hits it on the beach, I might go look for it if I mean, why not, right? But as an official, I don't feel you need to step in there and be obligated to do that. But as an opponent or maybe a fellow competitor, if it's the last hole of the tournament and you're down a stroke, maybe it is in your best interest to go look for it.
If the player who lost the ball tells his opponent not to go look for it, and the opponent asks you, can he do that? What would be your answer?
No.
I would say no, and I think it's 27-2B/1 that covers that.
Something happened with that nothing great. Somebody found somebody's ball and got on ballistic because they didn't want them looking for it. They looked. It was in the big break.
Right.
Well, that's something.
I don't want to find out because I'm going to tap in for it. You're in the bunk there. It's going to take you 3 to get out.
All right.
What's your recommendation? So what is she? 203 yards more away from the player.
Before you
Yeah.
can get to the woods
And you see a ball go out from the potentially unfair.
Sure.
Do you wait for the player to
Yeah.
drive and ask him?
Well, that's a good question. I think I would probably wait. As a player, I would try to determine if that was me, would I want to find that ball or not, and I would probably wait. If there's any doubt to whether the player may not want you to search for it, just wait for the player to get there. And same thing too. If you've got some spectators out there, and you think this might be a situation where the player might not want to find their ball, tell the spectators that, hey, we're going to wait to look for it until the player gets there because he may not want to find it. And you can also tell the player that before they go into search. You know, you can tell them, hey, if you find this ball, you're going to have to play it. You're not going to be able to use your provisional ball. So,
Kyle,
yeah.
I didn't see the Mickelson thing, but if Mickelson says this is not my provisional ball, it's a substituted ball, then everything's done, right?
Right. Yes. If he doesn't say it's a provisional ball and just plays under stroke and distance, yes, he would.
Right. So regardless of, so he must have said that if he had to go down and identify his ball, then he must have said that he was hitting a provisional ball.
Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah.
Okay. But if you know you don't want to go down there looking for it, just say, no, this is a substituted ball, and therefore it's going to play right there, regardless of how it's found. It's out of play.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, you can do that. If you hit a really, really wayward tee shot and you don't want to find it and you don't want to leave the possibility of finding it, you just don't say you're hitting a provisional. Yeah. That's a good point. You can do that.
That's what he does.
Right.
Your competitor goes.
I think the reason he did it is because his opponent had already did.
Yeah.
He hit in there as well, so they're both playing provisional balls. When they found Mickelson, he had to bend provisional.
Right.
Decide what he was going to do with that ball and go back to the tee.
Phil's endlessly hopeful. I mean, he's played plenty of shots that 99% of players out there have would not be able to play. So I think as just his nature, he probably wants to wait until the last minute to assess whether he's going to be able to play a shot or not, because there's just so many shots out there that he can hit that no one else can.
That's a decision. That's a
weird one. All right, if a player plays provisional ball under Rule 27-2A, the strokes made after this rule has been invoked, the provisional ball subsequently abandoned does not count, and the penalties are disregarded. Makes sense, right? All right, key decisions here for Rule 27. There's a few more listed on the sheet than what was originally sent out.
Kyle, can we drill down to 27-2A 2.2?
Yes.
443. It kind of involves the question that Tom had, and I know I had to ask him this question at Oakland University. The Khaki Cousins course, I think it was 5, with the elevated tee. Pond on the left, is short of the landing zone, but the trees on the left are marked red. So the player hit a provisional. He's sitting in the middle of the fairway. I'm on the trouble hole. I find his ball in the woods. Can he play his provisional? And Tom said, did you know that was red? And our players are always going to say, oh, no, I thought it was all water over there, or I thought it was just lost. I didn't know it was water. So I think this decision gives a little wiggle room to, yes, I knew there was water, but it could have been lost outside.
Sure.
And that way they could pick up their provisional, take their drop from the red hazard.
Right. No, yeah, there definitely is some wiggle room, and basically it's going to come down to those factors that that you're looking at. Are there things around that may cause the ball to be lost? Trees, tall grass, outside the hazard, if they heard the ball hit a tree, and there were trees outside the hazard, good chance the ball may be somewhere not in the hazard. So there's lots of factors that you're going to consider, and I don't know if there's I think the reason that decision's in there is because there's no one way of doing it. There's going to be a process where you have to evaluate and make a decision, make a judgment, and that's going to be case by case.
But if it's the second day of stroke play and they claim they didn't know that was red over there on the left.
I mean, when you say that, I would say as a player, there have been plenty of times where I played a course once and then played it again, and it's been a completely different situation on the same hole, and I had no idea that it was there. So I don't even know if you can use that as a thing. I mean, it's one thing that if that was his only thing that that was causing, or that's what he said. Well, I wasn't over there yesterday. If that was the only thing, you probably rule against the player in that. But if that's one of multiple things, I mean, I don't think that would necessarily qualify it to be automatically the player can't play provisional, because I mean.
Well, most of the players are given information sheets, and all they have to do is read it, and they know where the water hazards are.
Sure.
And OBs.
Yeah. And I mean, we don't always put everything on there, but if it is an area of concern, we usually do put it on the rule sheet.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I kind of look back, or when I'm making that decision, is I try to put myself in the player's shoes. Right. So if a player's playing a tournament, they've got a yardage book, right? And they get a yardage book, maybe not all of them, but the players that use a yardage book. If I'm a good golfer, when I get a yardage book, do I like make notes of where the lateral water hazard is or whatever? No, probably not. I'm just picking what club I'm hitting off the tee. I'm picking where I'm aiming. Now, good players don't think about lateral water hazard. That's what hacks like I think about, because I don't want to go. So I'm thinking, okay, I can't go left here. Can't go left. Good players are thinking, I want to hit at this tree in the distance. That's my aim point, and I go up there and hit it. So it just depends on the level of player too, because just my own personal opinion, good players don't think about hazards. They don't think about how golf courses are marked. They just go out and they try to make birdies. That's what good players do. And if some, I'm okay if someone disagrees with that, but that's just my experience from being around players that play at a high level. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Thank you, sir.
But everyone has their own interpretation. Good question, good discussion. I'm sure this won't be the last time that it's brought up, and I'm sure it will happen at least 2 or 3 times during the season. Guaranteed. Yeah.
I think it's important
does.
whether or not you can see a red stake from the tee.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There are times where you don't see it.
Yep.
And then you think my ball might be lost.
Yep.
All right, any questions? All right. Water hazards, including lateral water hazards. So I don't need to ask you guys the difference between the lateral and the water hazards. You guys got that down. All right, so 26-1, relief from ball and a water hazard. Okay, so again, as we were just discussing, it's a question of fact whether the ball has been found in the water hazard. We need to have that knowledge of virtual certainty that the ball is in the water hazard to proceed under Rule 26-1. If we don't, we're going to be going back under stroke and distance. Okay, so again, that decision that talks about virtual certainty is 26-1/1. And so if a ball is found in a water hazard, or if there's known or virtually certain that the ball that has not been found is in the water hazard, whether the ball is in the water or not, the player may, under penalty of 1 stroke, do these 4 things. Now, they also may play the ball, right? No penalty. That's always an option. So they can do 2 things in a water hazard. Again, you can go back to where you last played from. Play under stroke and distance. You can drop a ball, keeping the point where you last crossed the margin of the water hazard, and the flag as far back as you want. So the USGA is calling this a flag line back option. So basically, you just need to determine where that X marks the spot is, or what I call X marks the spot, where you last crossed the margin of the water hazard. That X and the flag as far back as you want. And we'll show you a picture here in a little bit. And additionally, if it's a lateral water hazard, or red, you've got 2 other options to take 2 club lengths from. Again, from that X marks the spot where you last cross the margin of the water hazard, 2 club lengths in close to the hole, or on the opposite side of the margin, equidistant from the hole, 2 club lengths from that point. And so 5 options for lateral water hazard, 3 for water hazard, 4 under 1 stroke penalty under lateral, 2 under 1 stroke penalty. You can always play it from the hazard, no penalty. That's your actual.
Oh, that's the actual. Okay.
Yep. All right. Under Rule 26, you can clean it if you're lifting it, or substitute another ball. These are just some things that you can't do in a hazard. We've already discussed those. So the picture here, so sorry it's a little blurry, but it's decision 26-1/15. If you want to get a better picture, but these are the options. So you've got player A, or sorry, the player that's hitting from point A, they hit it, and it goes to point B here. All right, so you've got the line, or they can play it from point B. You can take 2 club lengths from point C, which is where they last cross the margin of the water hazard, lateral water hazard, 2 club lengths. So in that shaded area there. You can also take the flag line back option and drop anywhere on this dotted line here. So point D would be taking that option. And then, oh, I forgot the one you can always go back and hit from A, right? So you can go back to where you last played from and hit from A. And then the last one in this case is you can go equidistant on the opposite side or the opposite margin of the hazard and drop within 2 club lengths there.
What is G?
G is the point that's on the opposite side, but it's not equidistant from the hole. So
you're further away though.
Right, exactly. So instead of dropping at point G, you want to find point E. Right. So that's what they got the R.
Because you got to E within 2 clubs.
It's got to be equidistant. So it's got to be the same. So basically, nowadays what you would do is exactly since most people have the rangefinder, you just shoot the rangefinder at point C, and then you go over to the other side and find where that rangefinder is the same yardage. If you don't have a rangefinder, you just guess.
Oh, the players have rangefinders though.
There's not too many that don't.
Exactly.
Exactly. What do they do?
All right. So that's a picture there. And then I've got something I want to show you guys here that we referenced earlier, but I did a bad job of explaining. So I want to show you guys this really quick.
It may go away.
Yeah.
While you're looking at that, are you saying that there are 7 options for lateral water hazard?
No. Just
in the book they say
so,
there's 2 and 4.
Yeah,
You
it's
said 3 and 5.
right. So
still playing from the.
you've got with the yellow water hazard, you've got your 2 options. You can go back to where you last played from. You can go back on that flag line back. And then in addition, if it's a lateral water hazard, you got the two club length options. And then under both of them, you can play the ball where it is without penalty.
Right.
Right. So let me.
Kyle, what was G in that? Or F, I think it was in your diagram.
Yeah. So F was where you can't drop it, or what's determined to be line of flight. So that would just be the path of the ball. So point F would be a place where you would not be allowed to drop.
First ball. Okay.
All right.
2 times 4.
So this happened last year at the WGC Cadillac Championship at Doral. So basically, I'm just going to show you this video here, and then we'll kind of talk about exactly what happened. Well, I think we kind of need to talk about what happened. So basically, what happened was J.B. Holmes hit the ball, and he wanted to use the equidistant option on the opposite margin. So he did that, but instead of dropping it from 2 club lengths, he took his flag line back thinking that he could do that. So he mixed up his options, and when he did that, he actually went farther away from where the ball should have been dropped. But the reason that he went back was because he was going to be on a flatter lie and be able to hit over a tree, and the PGA Tour ruled that it was a serious breach. So we'll show the video here. It's not a great video because it just more or less talks about the announcers talking about what happened, but we'll play it anyways. It doesn't show everything that he did, unfortunately.
Oh, the fever. I'll have to go back on
I'm not entirely certain which, how many. Good work there.
Yeah. See you next week.
You get last place.
So this was after he was forced to go back.
Yeah.
So now they're going to explain exactly what happened. You see the rules official running away there.
Smart guy.
It's smart.
I didn't want to be on TV.
At school, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do this justice, but I will try. Okay. As we were describing, the lateral water hazard, you have 5 options. Okay. You've got, you can play the ball as it lies. You can go back to the tee and replay the ball. You can take the ball 2 club lengths from where it crossed the margin. You can go back and keep that ball in line. This is the very important one here. Keep the point where it last crossed in line with the flags that you can go back as far as you like. You also have option 5, going across the hazard and keeping it equidistant across the hazard and then dropping the ball 2 club lengths from that equidistant margin. What JB did is he went across the hazard, but then took line of sight.
You took option A.
So if you're getting me here, between options,
Hybrid. It's a hybrid option.
as long as it's what he did is he got a bit confused with option 5, going across the margin and going back instead of just taking the 2 club lengths from where that margin was across the other side of the hazard. You digging me? Yeah. You're only on 2 club lengths if you choose the equidistant option. And what JD did is he chose the equidistant option, but he also took the point of that and he went back as far as he wanted to go, which we couldn't do. I think the appropriate ending to all of this would be who was pulling this one out. Of course.
That's a nice spot, too.
He's 5 over. He's not having
That's it. And I can let you swing. That is full bogey. That's over.
I'm sure, was he disqualified? I don't remember.
No, he wasn't disqualified because they caught him. So that shot that he hit into the green was him going back and fixing his mistake.
Within 2 club lengths.
Oh.
Within 2 club lengths.
Right. Okay. And I think what happened was he actually laid up on his. So he hit. I'm not 100% positive, but where he was hitting his shot was, I think he laid up to there after taking 2 club lengths and then hit that on the green.
Kyle, in that situation, did he get a 2-stroke penalty for playing from a wrong place?
I think he must have, yes. So I'm guessing he made birdie on his ball and then got that 2-stroke penalty from playing from the wrong place, right?
I found our answer
Oh,
to
did you?
this morning.
Okay.
We'll talk later.
Yeah, I was just laughing because Gene and I were talking about this similar situation this morning about how I think it's ridiculous if a player goes and fixes their mistakes, they still get a penalty for playing from the wrong place. But yes, they do.
Unless you're the ladies playing solo and ripping. Oh, it was this.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, the British official, Solheim Cup, right, when you let her play for She went back on line of flight on the equal opposite margin. And it took him 25 minutes to make the damn decision, and it was still wrong.
Kyle, if he had not corrected it, he would have been disqualified then, right?
Right.
If it had gone off and teed off on the next hole.
Right, yes, because the PGA Tour rules officials determined that it was a serious breach. Yeah.
They do it on the tour, do they do it?
All right.
Had it been 25 yards closer, it would have
Kyle, would you go back to your diagram and show me where he hit from? I'm a little confused.
Sure, yeah. Hold on one second.
So, Gene, this is the most questions that the USG has. Is that offenses or water answers?
Mm-hmm.
What would Carlos do?
All right, so where JB hit from, JB hit from, let's call it here, point H.
So he hit line of sight from E to the flag rather than from D to the flag.
Right, so he went on this line back, which should be straight, but he went on that line back instead of within 2 club lengths.
Well, he could have gone to D, couldn't he have?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Yep. Yeah, he could have went to D, but he went on the opposite side of the water, and went back on this H, which isn't a relief option.
15.
Right. Okay, I got you.
Okay.
As long as he was playing from the other side of the hazard, he couldn't do the opposite.
Might have been a bad
Right.
line.
Sure. All right. I want to go back this other thing too.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. What is G?
G is
Just the wrong
if you look
place.
at the decision,
Yeah,
it just says it's a place that's on the opposite side of the margin, but it's not equidistant. So that's just the wrong place where a player could play from. So
All right.
So G is just imagine G
G
is
is the wrong place.
yeah.
What are the other wrong places on there?
Anywhere that's
They don't know
not
any better.
in the shaded blue triangle areas or tab pies, point B, point A, or anything on this line of D to the flag. Those are all good places. Anywhere else on the golf course would be a bad place.
And point F is a good place?
No, point F is bad too.
No. Okay. All right.
So no line of flight. I would definitely recommend you guys reading this decision. It's a good one, and it covers exactly all those points and what they mean.
Yeah, and this is probably one of the things we encounter a great deal of the time.
Right. Yes, definitely.
Decision was the first you just wanted to-
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
When he came back and had a replay a shot, could he invoke any of these options to play from?
So that's a good question. I think that, and I think I would need someone to verify, but since he did not drop in a correct place, he should be able to choose any of his options.
Any of
and fix it. Correct, Gene?
Yep.
Yep. So the question, which was a good one, was when a JB went back to fix his mistake, could he changed his option and taken 2 club lengths on the side where it last crossed the hazard, or gone back to where he last played from? And the option, or the answer is he can, because he dropped in the wrong place.
There's a question on one of the tests. If he dropped in this situation 3 club lengths away, realized that he made a mistake, can he pick up and then go across? And the answer was yes.
Yes.
Kyle?
Yeah.
You're saying that on a red flag, he can do D? Red lines, red water line, lateral hazard, he can do D?
Yep. That's the flag line back from where he last crossed the margin of the water hazard, lateral water hazard.
It's not always
You can do D on either.
There are times where it is.
Correct. Yep. D is an option for both lateral and water hazard.
So, but JB Holmes went and used the point of E as his line and went back, and that's why he got
Exactly.
penalized, because that was an incorrect drop.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. All right. Gosh, we probably need to get going. All right. We'll save the last picture for later. It's a good one. For the last link. So All right. Ball played from within the water hazard. So a ball comes to rest in the same water hazard or another water hazard. All right, so the ball played starts in the hazard and comes to rest in the same or another hazard. After the stroke, the player may, under a penalty of 1 stroke, play a ball as nearly as possible at the spot from which the last stroke from outside the water hazard was made. Okay, so that's completely leaving the hazard. And additionally, under a penalty of 1 stroke, they could also go back to where they last played from inside the hazard, or they could take their relief options under 26(1)B, which is that line back with the flag and the point where they last cross the margin of the water hazard as far back as they want. Or if it is a lateral water hazard, they can take the 2 club lengths either from where they last cross or on the opposite margin equidistant from the hole where they last cross. Okay? So in all these situations, it's just 1 stroke penalty if they do any of those. Now, if a player drops the ball and they drop it and they're like, "Oh crap, I can't play from here." So they drop where they last played from in the hazard, and when they drop it, they were sitting outside the water, still in the water hazard, but when they dropped, it hit where they were and then it rolled in the water in a foot of water. They can't play it, right? At that point, the player can, under an additional penalty, go back and take relief under 26-1B, which is that line back where they last crossed the water hazard, as far back as they want, or if applicable, the two club length options. Or additionally, under under another penalty, they can proceed under clause 1, which is to go back where they last played from outside the water hazard. But in that case, this would be after they had dropped where they last played from, and so dropping where they last played from, it would be a total of 2 penalty strokes.
When was the rule on regression instituted? If you hit it back into the same water hazard, you can pick your drop.
2 years.
Really?
Yeah,
Because last year at rural school, they spent a lot of time on it.
that's been a while.
I thought maybe it was new.
No.
All right, so there's a picture that we'll get to that will help make this a lot easier. But before we get that, we just got to cover a few other things. So now, in that last situation, the ball stayed within the same water hazard or it went to another hazard. Now, in this case, that ball is played from within the water hazard. It's lost, or it's deemed unplayable outside of the hazard, or it's out of bounds. Okay, the player may, after taking a penalty of 1 stroke under Rule 27-1 or 28A, play a ball as nearly as possible in the spot or at the spot in the hazard from which they just played from. And so they can go back to where they last played in the hazard under a 1 stroke penalty, or they can add an additional 1 stroke penalty, so making a total of 2 strokes, and play the ball from where they last played outside of the hazard. Or they can do the relief option, so you're lying back where you last cross the water hazard and the flag as far back as you want. Or if it's applicable, if it's the lateral water hazard, 2 club lengths from where they last cross the margin of the lateral water hazard, or the equidistant option. So in both those cases, 2-stroke penalty. So if a player hits it from a water hazard and it goes out of bounds, or the ball is lost, or they're going to take an unplayable, and they want to go back and hit from where they last played from under the unplayable, they can drop in that spot. It's going to cost them a penalty, but if they want to get out of the hazard after that, it's going to be 1 more penalty stroke.
So if they hit 2 out, they would be hitting 5 if they chose the 2-stroke option for penalty, right? If 2 went out of bounds.
So the first shot goes in the hazard.
Right. And then
Second,
you play it from
second
there.
shot goes out of bounds.
Right, so that's
then they're hitting 4 out of bounds, right?
No.
They're- If he hit his ball into the hazard.
Yeah.
And then decided to play from the hazard, but hit it out of bounds.
Right.
It's two. If he wants to play under II, then it's 2-stroke penalty to come back and hit, right?
No, it's only 1 stroke because it's the stroke distance,
It's
right?
it's one for the out of bounds. If
Right.
he can drop it in the hazard and see if he likes it, he gets a free look at that point on this side. If he likes it, he's gonna play it. If he doesn't like it, he has to take a stroke penalty for the
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So if he takes it out,
And
he's hitting,
It's another stroke.
it's another stroke to take it out, so now he's line 4, right?
yeah, and he's playing 5 from
He's playing
outside.
5,
Yeah.
that's what I was asking.
Yep.
Okay,
So
yeah.
do you have the diagram? on
Yeah.
yours? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's highly risky to try to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Unless you know you're gonna make good contact. It's definitely risky, yeah.
But if you've got a high school girl that's crying, you can say, we can get you out of this. I know you've hit two in the water, but we can get you out of this.
I'm gonna go home.
Yeah.
I want my money.
It's cold out here.
All right. So just last thing to note, so when proceeding under this, under Rule 26-2B, the player is not required to drop a ball. So they can go straight to that point. But if they do, it's going to be a 2-stroke penalty. But as Gene said, they get that free look, so it's, it would be to their advantage to
drop the ball.
To drop the ball and see where it ends up. Unless they just don't want to risk hitting the ball out of bounds again, which they might not want to.
Yeah.
All right. If the ball is played from within a water hazard is deemed unplayable outside the hazard, they could still take their relief options under the unplayable that don't require to go back from where you last played from, which is B and C under Rule 28, which we'll get to in a little bit. All right. So here's the picture. So this is a good decision here. So basically you have, we'll read it. Regarding the diagram, A and B play from the tee. A's ball comes to rest at the water hazard at point A. B's ball comes to rest at point B. Both A and B are left to play from the hazard. A fails to get the ball out of the hazard. He plays to point X. Okay, so we've got A, he plays to point X. What are his options?
He can go up there and hit from.
Play it from X.
He can play it from X.
Doesn't like it, he can play from where he last played.
He can take a drop at A.
He can go back to A.
He can take the penalty. Go back out to the tee.
Yep, you can go back out to the tee. Or additionally, you can go back on that dotted line E. Right?
For 2 strokes.
Last strokes the margin of the hazard.
So those, no, not for 2 strokes. All under 1 stroke. So this one, the ball never left the hazard. It's still in the hazard. So any one of those options, except for playing from point X, it's just going to be 1-stroke penalty.
Okay, go through this again. If he and he goes back to the T or goes to E, what stroke is that?
So okay, first shot goes in, he hits it to X. That's 2. So
Right.
His next stroke is, if he doesn't play from X, is going to be 4, because he's going to take 1 penalty stroke, and then wherever he hits from, whether it's a team ground, anywhere on that dotted line E, or back again from A, he's going to be hitting 4. Exactly.
So he's getting a free look then from X.
Well,
Not if he drops it.
yeah, no,
Not if he drops it.
yeah, not if he drops it back on point A. I mean, if he drops it at point A and then he realizes, oh, hey, I don't want to play from here. If he wants to go back to the team ground from there or back on line E, then it's going to be a 1-stroke penalty. Do that.
If he doesn't play from A.
If he doesn't.
Exactly. And an additional penalty stroke. So
I don't understand.
yeah, so it's
Why is the line
confusing.
from E not coming from X? If he
X has nothing to do with the
Because
point at which
it's
he
where
hit
he
it.
last crossed the hazard. Because he never left the hazard.
So if he hit 4 balls in there, didn't matter.
Right.
Right.
He could come, okay.
Yep. So again, it's only in this case, player A, he's only going to get 1 penalty stroke, whatever option he chooses, unless he drops the ball at point A and then decides not to play from
Which would be if he chose to play on E or back to the teeing ground.
Correct, yes. He would get one more stroke penalty if after he dropped, he decided to go back to teeing ground or on that line E, yep.
So he would lie 2 at point X, 3 at point A, 4 at line E or the teeing ground.
No, not necessarily.
Be lying. Only if he
drops at A and then so he could go straight from point X to the tee ground and be hitting 4.
4. Yeah, that's what I said.
Sorry, I'm not good with line and stuff. It's too confusing for me. But yeah, so
A is the only point where he could play with just one penalty stroke.
no.
You play with no penalty strokes.
No, he can play. So if player plays to point A, he hits it to point X. At that point, the player can play from point A from anywhere
with one stroke at point A, right?
Right, with one stroke from point A, with one stroke and anywhere from point E, and with one stroke going back to the tee. Now,
I thought if he took it out of the hazard, it was the 2 strokes.
no, only if after he drops it.
That's where they're confused.
So it's
He plays from point A, and then goes to X, then he goes back to point A, drops
so
another ball.
Sarah, we're gonna go back and look at the wording. Okay, so where is this? Okay, so this one.
Does this apply to your T thing?
All right, so here in the note is where it describes it. If the player proceeds under Rule 26-1A, which is by dropping the ball in the hazard as near as possible to the spot in which the original ball was last played. So going back to the picture, that's going to be that point A again. At that point, if he elects not to play it, the drop ball, he can proceed under clause 1, which means he can go back to where he last played from outside the water hazard, which would be the teeing ground, or since it's only a water hazard in our picture, he can go back on the line, which is that point E. But if he does that, it's going to be a 2-stroke penalty. But he can.
Oh, if he dropped it.
But if you look at point 2 there, it says that they can go. You can go directly to those spots. Point 1 and 2 say you can go directly to those spots with only 1-stroke penalty.
I see.
Yeah.
So if you drop that bad boy, well, it leaves your hand, it costs you another stroke to pick it up.
So I mean, yeah, just given this scenario, it's going to be very unlikely that a player is going to ever want to drop back at point A, unless they just had a really, really good lie. But chances are they're gonna either choose to go back on the line or they're gonna go back to where they last played from. All right, so now we got player B. So player B plays to point B, and then player B plays to point B, and then he plays from point B and he hits it to point Y, which is out of bounds. Okay, so what are his options here?
You can play it back to
So
B.
he can go back to B with just one penalty stroke.
Yep.
Just one.
Go back on the line.
Just stroke
Yep.
distance.
Right. Go back on the line. Yep.
Yep. So he can go back on line F, but in that one it's going to be 2 penalty strokes.
What?
Which one? What?
All right.
Not if he didn't go back to 1.
2 hours. 3 back in.
He's still got it.
Where
It's
we
going to be
want
2
drop.
penalty strokes, one for being out of bounds and one for getting out of the hazard.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. I see what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I agree.
Combine those.
3 in your hand.
Or he can go back to the team ground. 1 stroke for being out of bounds, 1 stroke for leaving the hazard. Total of 2.
But if he takes a drop at B and then doesn't like it, then come out at F.
And then
You
he
got
can come
another
out at
one.
F.
If he
But that's
goes 1 at B, 2 at Y, he drops back at B,
he's hitting 4.
he's hitting 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He only gets that second stroke if he doesn't want to play it there and wants to get out of the hazard.
In that case, this player, when he's dropping it, he's getting a free look.
Free look.
Right? So this is where that free look comes into play, where he hits it out of bounds, or it's lost after he hits from a hazard. So here's the answers or whatever. It's in that same decision. So you can see. We'll just jump to the B one because I think we got the first one fairly well. But B, so after taking a penalty as prescribed under Rule 27-1, which is the ball is out of bounds. Out of bounds. The player may drop the ball at point B and play again from there, playing 4. Alternatively, after taking a penalty stroke in Rule 27-1, the player may drop at a point B and elect not to play from there, and then elect not to play that ball or elect not to drop a ball at point B. In either case, he shall then, under an additional penalty stroke, drop the ball anywhere on the dotted line FF to play from there, playing 5, or under an additional penalty 1 stroke, play another ball from the tee, playing 5. So this decision gives you numbers and everything, which is good. If you have some confusion, which is normal. I know the first 5 times I read through this, I was just completely confused. I had no idea what to make of it. But this is a very good decision. And I think they've done some work on it over the years to make it less confusing. Because I remember when I first read it, it was just really, really confusing.
Yeah, if I may here, if there's another option, if I may. If let's put a player C in that hits, crosses the hazard, hits the green, the ball rolls back into the hazard. Where is the player's option? So the player crosses the hazard, hits the green, rolls back into the water.
So hits here.
Yes.
Spins back, and ends up in point C.
Drop options.
Right. So your drop options there, you're going to have your X marks the spot here. So again, you're going to be able to go back on this line as far back as you want. Now this is assuming that the player doesn't play from within the hazard. Do you want to make the assumption that the player plays from point C and it doesn't leave the hazard?
No. He's not going to play from point C.
Sure.
He's going to play.
Yep. So it's where he last cross, so he can go back on this line here as far back as he wants, or he can go back to the tee.
Is there a lateral to club from point C?
Well,
No.
That's got to be yellow, so it has to go back.
Yeah. So this one's a water hazard. This one's a water hazard here.
There we go. Thank you.
And hopefully we'll get to it, but Tom just brought up a good thing. So Tiger 2013 on hole 15. There's a really good article I want to show you. So let's hopefully we can get rushed.
Hey, Kyle, so if the guy's ball, the tee ball, let's say the tee ball clears the pond, hits the bank, and now rolls back in, and it's a water hazard.
Mm-hmm.
Would they have a drop area? Or
No.
would he have to just come all the way back?
Water
Got to
hazard.
come all the way back to the other side.
They could put a drop area, but if they're going to put a drop area in, if they don't have one, he has to go back on the other side.
He's got to come back to
If
the
they
other
put a
side.
drop area in, I mean, a good committee would put it somewhere here or somewhere. They would never put it over here.
Got it.
Yeah.
Still have to cross the water.
All right.
Most players don't understand that rule.
Most officials. No, I know I do.
Same scenario.
Yeah. All right. I guess because it's about Rule 26, let's bring up the Tiger Woods thing. There's a really good article that I want to show you guys that I ran into this morning.
Yeah, he's got all the wrong stricken distance.
Revisions for 2016. Number 26.2.
Might be that they changed the word which to that.
Who wrote the article?
It's golf.com. It's really good.
What does it say? 26-2.
We'll get to it, but basically the article kind of talks about exactly what happened, and
Does it say thread fill on it?
It looks like he's in a dentist.
No, not really. So, a little bit. So, oh, this is just announcers for golf.com. Sorry. So again, this happened in 2000. This happened in 2013 on number 15. Tiger hit a shot. It hit the flagstick and it bounced in the water.
Right.
Some really bad luck. And then what happened? You guys. Oh, sorry. This is not showing.
I did.
Let me get that showing right here.
It's an apple, isn't it?
Yeah. Keep looking.
It's showing on my screen. I promise that. All right. Can you guys see? We can't see here.
Yeah, we can see Kyle.
Okay.
I see some.
Why can't I see here?
Well, he moved from one side of the room to the other.
It's a full moon, I swear.
It is.
Probably the change in temperatures out there quick.
All right.
Isn't this where he dropped in the wrong spot?
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes with the Masters.
Yeah.
15.
Yeah. It's like
Fizzing a little bit.
Yeah, but they didn't give him.
Get them all correct?
You could have disqualified.
Did you get them all?
But they.
Yeah, see, I don't know why we don't have a new decision based on it.
The man?
Yeah, they should have made another decision because this is a loose amendment, right?
Well, that's that big rock.
Yeah, they have a new decision.
I just wish Kyle could get some better looking guys in the background there.
You have to explain that to us one day.
Yeah, I do.
He wants to be a millionaire.
It's not. It's just the thing about this one author that there's just a lot of good habits to get into.
I like number 37.
He's trying to get out of here.
Millionaires, right?
15 minutes from now, if he becomes a millionaire, he's gone.
No excuse.
It's not like being a rules official.
He could be the head of GAM.
I still wouldn't make
You can drink some Greektown water. That'll bring it back.
That's right.
Plant seeds. It's winter.
Yeah, that only costs
This only cost me
$1,500.
$500. Plus the tip.
That's probably Detroit River water too.
Yeah. That missed putt was $500,000. Right. I don't might be a millionaire.
Gene, while Kyle is doing this, I have a funny story on Rule 27-2.
Proceed.
Well, last year when I heard Gene at the it was over in Lansing, and she said that she told that story about invoking Rule 27-2. Well, I couldn't wait until I could do that on my golf buddies. Didn't take long before I had to invoke that rule. However, I invoked Rule 27. And I forgot the -2. Well, naturally, they challenged me at the clubhouse, and I pulled out the old decisions home. And it was discovered that it should have been 27-2 and not 27, and it cost me 3 beers.
Selective memory is costly.
So I will always remember 27-2.
Good learning tool.
All right, I'm not sure if we're gonna. We'll try, but let's see here. Okay, so
We did it.
I like that 17 up there.
I didn't see.
It says avoid death.
This is just, all right.
Yeah, that's because it's your kids. That's the only way your kids are going to become millionaires. If you die before you get a chance to spend their inheritance.
All right. Well, I'm just going to read the article to you, and I'll send it out. It's a really good article. I'm going to try to get it so that it can be at least viewed on YouTube, so you guys can look at it later. But I apologize for this. I'm not sure what's going on with this today. Can you guys see this article? Golf?
We can't see the article.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, good. So I'm just going to read it. So near the center of the Tiger Woods rules fiasco at the Masters this year, granted this article was written a little bit ago, was a call that Fred Ridley, the tournament's competition committee chairman and a club member, said came from a television viewer, in quotations. Millions watched Woods make his now famous second round drop on ESPN on the 15th hole at 6:33 p.m. on that Friday in mid-April. But only one person was able to get a message to Ridley about it, and that person, it turns out, was the Champions Tour golfer David Eager. Before joining the senior circuit, Eager had a long career as a tournament director with both the PGA Tour and the USGA. Along with Mark Russell of the PGA Tour and Kerry Hay of the PGA of America, Eager is one of the most experienced tournament officials in U.S. golf and an expert on the rules. In a recent telephone interview, Eager said that he was casually watching the Friday round of the Masters in his Florida home. As Woods came off the 16th green where he got up and down for par, Eager noticed Woods had dropped a shot since he had last seen a score. Eager was curious to see how that had happened. Through the magic of modern TV, Eager was able to rewind and watch Woods on the 15th hole. He saw Woods play his third shot, the one that famously hit the fiberglass flagstick and caromed into the water. He then watched Woods take his drop. In quotes, I could see there was a divot, not a divot hole, when he played the shot the second time that was not there the first time, Eager said. I played it again and again. I could see that the fairway was spotless the first time he played the shot, and there was that divot hole maybe 3 or 4 feet in front of where he played after the drop. The rules of golf are necessarily severe in their exactitude. A player, when competing under Rule 26-1A, as Woods was, is required to drop as nearly as possible to the ball's previous position. Some say the language is imprecise, but another view is that the language could not be more precise. It is worded that way because a golfer might not know the exact location from which he played his previous shot. Of course, if the golfer takes a divot, then the exact location is known, and Woods took a divot on that shot that found water. The procedure then is to drop immediately behind the divot. The intention of the rule is to have the golfer play, in essence, this exact same shot again. But Woods did not do this. Eager knew immediately there had been a possible rules violation. He also knew he had to act quickly so that Woods would not sign an incorrect scorecard, which almost always led to disqualification. It's a quirk of golf that anyone may report a possible rules infraction. It helps ensure accurate scorecards. Without the public's faith in the posted scores, tournament golfers will know it would not be possible. Eager and many people like him have an intuitive and deep understanding of that underlying principle. Back at the Eager home and in Augusta, the clock was ticking. Eager said he did not have a phone number for Ridley, the tournament director, but he did have one for Mickey Bradley, a veteran PGA Tour official who he knew was working the Masters. The tournament brings in rules officials from all over the world to officiate. Eager called Bradley, who, done with his work for the day, had already left the grounds. And I was driving on Washington Road, which is a street in Augusta, and I saw that David was calling. So I pulled over to the side. Bradley said last Saturday while sitting in a golf cart off the 6th hole at TPC Louisiana, where he was preparing for the Zurich Classic. That's not important. The previous day, Bradley had become a YouTube sensation when he finally drove alongside a three-legged alligator that had decided to watch some golf. Bradley from Biloxi, Mississippi, knows his way around wildlife. Not important anyways. Eager described the drop to Bradley. So over the phone, their call ended, and Eager sent Bradley a text message about it as well. Bradley immediately called Ridley and Russell, the veteran PGA Tour administrator who is on the three-man Masters competition committee that is chaired by Ridley, who is a former USGA amateur champion and USGA president. Bradley also forwarded Eager's text to Russell and Ridley. In his text, Eager wrote that Woods didn't appear to play by Rule 26-1A. He wrote that he appeared to be 3 to 4 feet back from his divot mark. Bradley forwarded Eager's text message at 6:59. Tiger was still on the course. Bradley drove to his rental house, concerned about whether Russell and Ridley would have time to review the drop before Woods left the scores room, having signed his card. The Masters moved the scoring area to a new location that year. Players used to check in and sign their cards in a small wooden building immediately behind the 18th green that looked like a Monopoly house. Now the players walk about 150 yards to a quiet and secluded room in the clubhouse between the pro shop and the locker room. After emerging from the scores room, Woods, after each round, conducted a series of interviews that typically meant talking to a group of TV reporters and a group of print reporters, as well as doing individual interviews with Golf Channel, ESPN, and or CBS. Woods had a long record of being polite, cooperative, and willingly dull in these interviews. Not always. He has done hundreds of them in all sorts of different moods, but usually he is most comfortable filling the time with technical descriptions of his play. It was in his post-round Friday interview with Tom Rinaldi of ESPN that Woods volunteered that he went 2 yards farther back when he made his drop on 15 to play a slightly different shot the second time. In a telephone interview on Sunday, Russell said the video of the drop was reviewed before Woods finished his round. Russell said he did not review the tape because he was on the course. He also said there was roving rules officials on the 15th hole and others stationed by the green, but they were too far away to see precisely where the ball was dropped. Woods did not request any help with the drop, neither from his playing partners nor rules officials. That's not surprising. Golf has many complicated rules, but dropping under 26-1A is not one of them. At 7:30 p.m., 10 minutes after Woods completed his round, Woodley responded by text to Bradley regarding Eager's estimate of 3 to 4 feet. Ridley wrote that Woods was closer than that. To look at it closer, he wrote, would be splitting hairs. Ridley determined that Woods has done nothing wrong, so there was no point in asking about the drop. Now, granted, this was before the interview. A rules official faces a difficult balancing act. He or she is obligated to help both the player and to protect the field. Being too liberal with the ruling to a player comes at a cost to the field. That is why precision is so important in the rules. A ball is either inbounds or out. The rules attempt, not always successfully, to eliminate all gray areas. Ridley was, in effect, saying that Eager's analysis was wrong and that the drop met the nearliest possible requirement of Rule 26-1A. In making that decision, he eliminated all the gray in a situation that Eager, an outside observer but a knowledgeable one, saw a wash in gray. At about 10:15 on Friday night, nearly 3 hours after his return text to Bradley, Ridley, who's the main rules official, was informed of Woods' comments on ESPN by way of a call from Jim Nance of CBS. Lo and behold. The network was taping its 11:30 p.m. Masters recap show when producers saw Twitter chatter questioning the legality of Woods' drop on the basis of the ESPN interview during which Woods essentially incriminated himself, unknowingly indicating he made an incorrect drop when he moved back those 2 yards. Nance asked Ridley if he was aware of the internet rumblings. He was not. On the recap show, David Ferry outlined the options Woods had available to play his fifth shot on 15 and questioned whether the drop was made correctly. After the call from Nance, Ridley contacted Tiger's agent, Mark Steinberg, who was having dinner at a jam-packed T-Bone Steakhouse on Washington Road. Steinberg forwarded Ridley's text to Woods, and Woods met with Ridley on Saturday morning. At that time, Woods was assessed a 2-stroke penalty. So on Saturday afternoon, Ridley met with reporters to explain the circumstances of Woods' penalty and the enforcement of a seldom-used rule that allows the tournament committee to essentially right wrongs and undo its errors. Eager believes that Ridley came to the right decision, but that the path there was a needlessly difficult one. He also believes that there was enough evidence to approach Woods before he signed his card to protect the player and the field. How the issue affected, if at all, Woods' weekend play will never be known. The epicenter of the rules fiasco is that Woods made an incorrect drop and subsequently signed an incorrect scorecard, which is why some people think he should have withdrawn. Eager's call, the ESPN interview, Ridley's ill-fated review of the tape, those things all stem from Woods' mistake. It should be noted that Eager's call saved Woods from disqualification because it spurred Ridley's incorrect interpretation, which was challenged by Woods' own comments to ESPN, which enabled Ridley to invoke Rule 33-7, the one that allows wrongs to be righted. Ridley and Woods now share more than U.S. amateur titles. They are the protagonists of maybe the most complicated chapter of the history of golfing jurisprudence. It's not over yet. At a press conference on Masters Saturday, on the question of whether he might have done things differently, Ridley said, "There's not a day that goes by that there are not some things I wish I would have done differently." He's saying this a year later. Those words were an interesting and broadly philosophical commentary on the nature of life and regret, and a moment of relief in a press conference that was comically legalistic to many ordinary sports fans. Let's see, all this other stuff I don't think is really important. But basically, I'll just read it all. There's only 2 paragraphs left to unpack, right? The press conference was conducted by Craig Heatley, the club's press committee chairman and an Augusta national member. At the start, Heatley said, "You are all aware of an important and complex ruling. That ruling requires nothing less than complete transparency. I've asked Fred to come down and answer any and all questions that you may have pertaining to that." The session ended with hands still in the air. Last Friday, Eager spoke about the drop. The next day, Mickey Bradley did. On Sunday, Mark Russell did. On Monday, Stephen Ethan, and Augusta national spokesman, responded to an interview request sent to Fred Ridley by email. Ethan said Ridley was traveling and would be unavailable. So basically, there's this long, elaborate story which involves so many people. Jim Nance, and I don't know how Jim Nance gets involved, but Jim Nance, this guy essentially saved Tiger from being DQ'd because he brought to the attention. They looked at it, or they say they looked at it. I guess that still remains to be determined behind closed doors. But it's a very interesting look at the rules and how technology now is changing a lot of things. Not so much for what we do, but definitely for what's going on the PGA Tour. So I'll send this out so you guys have it. I'll send it out next Monday. It'll also be in the comments on YouTube if you want to read it over again. But I thought it was a really cool article. Kind of talks about the whole thing. I mean, most of us know about the situation, but I had no idea all this to the extent that went into getting it to come about. So
Kyle, do you think that's the basis for the new ruling on not including penalty strokes and signing for a wrong score?
I think that's a primary reason why they made that adjustment to Rule 6. Yeah, I mean, Patrick Harrington has also gotten screwed a couple times, and I think that also that video that we showed, I think it was the first week where Camilo had the ball and Lucas did it. I think he got DQ'd in that situation too. So I think there's those situations, but I think ultimately Tiger kind of tipped the scale in that sense, where they, instead of doing this Rule 33-7, they just say if the player was unaware.
Yeah.
But even in this case, if Tiger knew he was doing it incorrectly, he still could be subject to disqualification. It's just he has to be not known. I mean, I think in this case, Tiger probably didn't know what he was doing was incorrect.
He said in the
But,
press
yeah,
conference he moved back.
Yeah, but I think
But
he
he
didn't
didn't
know
know.
that he couldn't, or that nearly as
That he had
possible
to be,
wasn't, yeah.
that he had to be close.
No,
He didn't know that he had to be that
press
close.
conference, he also made reference to the fact he didn't want to use the drop zone because it was wet, and
Right.
slightly
That's
downhill,
true,
and he couldn't take the line from the flag stick because
Right.
it came into
Yeah.
The grandstands.
spectators' grandstands on 16.
But
Yes.
I think the fact that he probably didn't know that he has to drop as nearly as possible, or what nearly as possible defines. And he, maybe for all he knew, maybe he could go back a step or two or 2 yards to drop.
Or
I
I think he did a hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah,
He made a hybrid decision.
yeah, just like the lateral hazard that Kyle was talking about.
Right.
earlier.
It's kind of like the boulder thing.
The guy doing the opposite
Yeah.
margin and dropping back.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what,
JB
you know,
Holmes.
he said 6 feet, Tiger said 6 feet.
Yeah,
That's
well, he said he
2
walked back
yards.
he walked back 2 steps, he said.
Yep.
What he said in his interview, I took 2 steps backwards to get a better line.
He was doing a hybrid.
So it's very interesting, and Craig, I think you're right. We'll talk about Rule 6 eventually, hopefully. But that's definitely one reason why they put that in place. So situations like this and people calling in rulings don't DQ someone for signing the wrong scorecard when they had no idea that they had a penalty. Which in this case, it can be argued both ways, as we've seen that whether Tiger knew what he was doing was incorrect or not.
Think it would have happened if it was Joe Dokes?
That would have been easy.
Well, the camera wouldn't have been on him, so probably not.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it would have been the guy playing with Tiger who's a no-name, or let's say it's I don't know if Tiger didn't win, but let's say that the USAM champ was playing with with the guy that won it last year, and that happened to Curtis Luck this year, who won the USAM. I mean, for him, it probably would, and he's just an amateur, because if he's on TV, I don't know. I think they would rule the same way, regardless of who it was. If it was on TV, I think they would rule the same way. Just my own personal opinion.
You're so young.
Yeah.
It's nice. Not necessarily young, but naive.
Some people are created more equal than others.
Yeah. Some people have tremendously more latitude.
But they also had. Masters is a little bit different because they probably had their tickets sold already. But you're looking at a huge attendance discrepancy whereas Tiger plays a weekend and he doesn't. TV ratings.
It's TV. It's TV. Everybody stop watching. Yeah.
So I think that definitely comes into play. But all things considered, I think that they made a call under the rules that the committee can, and you can say what you want, but I think at the end of the day, golf fans were given the best product there. Tiger was penalized as he should have been, but he was still on. I think that's what the rule really is it allows players to still compete, even though they may have broken the rules.
That's a modification that came about high def television.
Right. Yeah. And I hope that that's what the USGA moves to when they're modifying the rules and simplifying, is that if they can get to this principle of no harm, no foul, I don't think they'll ever get to that. But if they can get to that, that would be ideal, because at the end of the day, is it really, should Tiger really be DQ'd for doing that if he had no idea he was doing it wrong? And the talk about him that he should withdraw because to honor the rules or whatever. I thought that was a little.
No, he should have just been
a little stretch.
No, we think the official with the group should have never let him drop, because he was obviously not paying attention.
Right.
There's an official with every group there. It's not like the tour
Right.
where there's only rovers. There's one with every group.
Well, they don't.
There's one at every hole.
There's one at every hole, but
Yeah,
they
they're
don't
not
travel
with
with
the
the group.
No?
Yeah.
And if you were Tiger was on your hole, you would sit back at the tee.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, but just like when
Eliminate.
Mark Wilson, that Sunday in 2015, Mark Wilson was sitting at the corner of the fairway on 14 where he was working. Because I went over and chided him about, is this Mr. Wilson's neighborhood? He was sitting underneath the tree.
I
in the
know,
shade
when
in
you
the
have a
chair.
hole, you're allowed to move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he decided the shade was his place to be
Oh,
because it was so
well,
warm.
that was the.
And he's, coat and tie and a hat and everything, so Mark was enjoying it.
But I mean, a good rules official would have been around there. I mean, not saying that the guy at 15 wasn't. I mean, I'm sure he was.
He was right there.
He or she was.
And afraid to say something because it was tired.
Sure. Or was scared to say something because they were on TV and
Yep.
they didn't want to say
Yep.
something wrong.
Well, you saw his picture. He's sitting, his chair was right below the grandstands there, off to the left-hand side of the water, right at the corner of the grandstand.
Wait till they start zeroing in on the 1-inch drops.
Yeah.
Oh, the ball moved.
And speaking of 1-inch drops, I did read this week, and I don't think that we discussed this last week, but the USGA is planning on these new rules being ready January 1, 2019.
Right.
So which is good. So sooner than may have been expected, but 2019 January 1, we will have a new set of modified rules that will be a lot less complicated, hopefully.
Well, I think the article I read said that
if you will.
some of the rules would be
Yeah,
available
yeah.
January 19th. Not necessarily all of them, but you'd see some of the rules would be modified.
What I read was that they will that it will be done and printed on January 1, 2019.
All 34 rules.
They're not going to have 34 rules.
Because just by a voice vote here, how many people would be in favor of the rule that would give a 1-inch drop? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
If you're, yeah, I mean, I think, but you still have to define what it means to drop, and at that point, what's the reason of changing it from where it is? If you're
Pretty simple, huh?
I mean, what's the difference between dropping shoulder height as opposed to belt height as opposed to 1 inch? I mean, I guess there is a difference in terms of where the ball might end up, but you still have to define it some way. So if they're trying to make it less complicated for people to be able to do it whatever way they want, you might as well just make it as low as possible. Would be my way to look at it.
Well, it's just like you talked about with the drop in the, under letter A, if we drop in the hazard, two-stroke, and we pick it up as a two-stroke penalty, why is that? Make it simple. 1-stroke penalty, take it out.
Right.
Well, then you make it mandatory to take it out. You don't get the free look by dropping it.
No, I get that, but still, why 2 versus 1 makes it more complicated for the common man. Excuse me, Elaine. For the common person to try to play by the rules.